Elizabeth Audencream.
This one's wife. Should Meghan vanish? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I should imagine for many of you, this would be a very short video. For if I pose the question to you, should this one's wife vanish? Your response would be, abso-fucking-lutely. End of video. Naturally, many of you want her to vanish because you find her annoying, irritating, despicable. You can pick a variety of adjectives to describe this particular person. Nevertheless, I thought that it would be advantageous to look at the situation as objectively as possible from a PR perspective in respect of what this one's wife ought to do. Setting aside the fact that most people that have got functioning brain cells would be quite happy for her to retreat to a life of privacy, but if one was advising her from a PR perspective and being as balanced as possible about some of the factors that she has which are advantages, whilst also looking at the disadvantage she has, what would be the appropriate advice to her? Removing that personal desire for her to vanish off the face of the earth, if you were coming at it as a PR professional, what would they say? Would they suggest that she continues getting in people's faces, that she pushes her brands all the more? Or would they recommend that she retreats? Because that, from a professional point of view, not a personal point of view, but from a professional point of view, would be the most appropriate thing to do. Accordingly, I put this to my PR expert to detail, if you were looking at this one's wife and considering her strengths and weaknesses, would you advise her to vanish or not? Accordingly, the strengths were listed as global recognition and celebrity status. This one's wife's association with the British royal family, despite her departure, ensures she remains a figure of global interest. Her royal title and marriage to Prince Harry provide a unique platform that few can match. Indeed, notice, of course, this is nothing to do with her own doing and everything to do with who she married. Her background as an actress and humanitarian also add layers to her public persona, which appeals to diverse audiences. Now, I know many of you will say, well, she's not really a humanitarian. Agreed. But remember, we're trying to look at this as in a balanced way as possible, and there are people who see her as a humanitarian. Media savvy and storytelling ability. This one's wife has demonstrated an ability to craft compelling narratives, particularly in interviews like the 2021 Oprah Winfrey conversation, which garnered massive attention. She articulates personal experiences and social issues which can resonate with certain audiences. She has leveraged digital platforms such as Instagram and her blog The Tig to connect directly with fans. Advocacy for social causes. This one's wife has positioned herself as an advocate for women's empowerment, mental health, and racial equality. Initiatives like the Archwell Foundation and speeches at events like the 2020 Uvalde Vigil highlight her commitment to the causes which can endear her to some socially conscious audiences. Again, I know that the majority of you listening are cynical of her, but it's important to remember that there are people out there that truly believe that she is a genuine advocate for women's empowerment, mental health and racial equality. And therefore, we need to factor that into the consideration as to whether she ought to disappear or not. Personal brand equity. Despite controversies, she retains something of a loyal fan base, mainly among younger demographics. Her image as a modern independent woman might be able to attract brands and partnerships in fashion, lifestyle, and media. Thus, those are the strengths that are identified in relation to her. Naturally, those of you who dislike her would caveat all of that, which I entirely understand. What about her weaknesses? Polarised public perception. This one's wife's public image is deeply divided. While she has some supporters who admire her for challenging royal norms and advocating for social justice, she also faces significant criticism for perceived entitlement, hypocrisy, lying, and ingratitude towards the royal family. This polarisation is evident in media coverage, with tabloids often portraying her negatively, and social media amplifying both praise and vitriol. Media scrutiny and negative press. The intense media scrutiny she faces has led to a cycle of controversy. Accusations of bullying staff, legal battles with the press, public feuds with the royal family have damaged her reputation. For instance, in the 2023 Invictus Games in the Netherlands, she was accused of upstaging others, which further exemplified how her actions can be perceived. Perceived hypocrisy. Critics often highlight inconsistencies between her public stance on issues like climate change and her personal actions, for instance, private jet use. This perceived hypocrisy undermines her credibility and alienates environmentally conscious audiences. Her lifestyle brand, as ever, faces similar scrutiny, with questions about authenticity and commercialisation of her royal status. Overexposure and fatigue. The constant presence in the media, whether through interviews or documentaries or public events, equates to overexposure. This leads to public fatigue and a decline in interest, particularly where the content is perceived as self-serving. Dependence on Harry's platform. This one's wife's public platform is inextricably linked to Prince Harry. Whilst this amplifies her reach, it also means that her individual brand suffers also if Harry's popularity wanes or if their joint projects fail to resonate. Their decision to step back from royal duties has not translated into a sustainable, independent brand, as evidenced by the very mixed reactions to the various things that they have done. Problematic aspects of image and behaviour. Entitlement and privilege. This one's wife's behaviour is often perceived as entitled, particularly in her interactions with the royal family and media. The 2021 Oprah interview, where she discussed royal tensions and personal grievances, was seen as many as a betrayal, reinforcing the narrative of ingratitude. Lack of authenticity. This one's wife's public persona is carefully curated, lacking authenticity. Her shift from royal duties to a celebrity lifestyle, combined with commercial ventures like As Ever, suggests a focus on personal gain rather than actual genuine advocacy. This is particularly damaging in an era where consumers demand transparency and authenticity from public figures. Legal and public battles. Her legal actions against the press and perceived conflicts with the royal family have kept her in a defensive position. While these battles may protect her privacy, they also perpetuate a narrative of victimhood, which is exhausting for audiences. The bullying allegations from former staff, both in the United Kingdom and the United States, complicate her image, suggesting a pattern of interpersonal challenges that undermine her quest to suggest that she is an advocate for kindness and empathy. Environmental and social hypocrisy. The discrepancy between her public advocacy for climate action and her private jet usage is a significant flaw. This hypocrisy is not just a PR issue, but a moral one, as it erodes trust among environmentally conscious consumers. Similarly, her focus on social justice is seen as performative, especially when contrasted with her luxurious lifestyle and commercial ventures. Failure to capitalise on opportunities. Despite her platform, this one's wife has struggled to translate her advocacy into lasting impact. Projects like Archwell and As Ever have not yet achieved the expected success as a consequence of mismanagement and public scepticism. The rebranding of American Riviera Orchard to As Ever, prompted by trademark issues, indicates a lack of foresight and strategic planning, further damaging her brand's credibility. Accordingly, you will note from all of that the weaknesses far outweigh the strengths. Public perception and strategic advice. The current public perception of this one's wife. While those that view her positively see her as a trailblazer for modern women, an advocate for mental health, and a symbol of racial progress. Her supporters value her willingness to support out against injustice. Those that view her negatively see her as divisive, hypocritical, and self-centred. The narrative of entitlement and victimhood dominates much of the discourse. Two options would be available. The expert explains. The first would be stay in the public eye with caution. Rationale: this one's wife's strengths lie in her global recognition and ability to influence. Retreating completely could diminish her platform and the potential for positive impact. It suggested that she focus on substantive, issue-driven content rather than personal narratives. For example, deepen her involvement in Archwell's charitable work, emphasising tangible outcomes rather than self-promotion. The risk is continued media scrutiny and the risk of overexposure. Any misstep could amplify negative perceptions. The alternative would be to seek a life of privacy. The rationale being the constant negativity and polarisation is unsustainable. A strategic retreat may allow her to rebuild her image over time away from a media frenzy. It would be necessary to limit public appearances to curated events that align entirely with her advocacy goals. There should be limited use of digital platforms. There should be a focus on quality over quantity. This would involve a hiatus from high-profile media, allowing her to work behind the scenes on projects like As Ever or Archwell. This could provide potential for rehabilitation of her image and the opportunity to return at some future point. I think this is a fair appraisal, being balanced with regard to how her supporters see her strengths, how her detractors see her negatives and her weaknesses, and how she might go about it. I then pushed the expert to state, what do you think ultimately she ought to do? And the response was, she ought to seek a life of privacy. This would serve her better based on current public perception. The relentless negative press and polarised views have created a toxic environment that hinders her ability to effect change or build a sustainable brand. The problem that she has is that her polarised public image, perceived hypocrisy and overexposure far outweigh the potential strengths of global recognition, advocacy skills and personal brand equity. She's undermined by the negative press, the entitlement narratives and inconsistent messaging. Her overexposure and self-promotion have resulted in far more people being against her than supporting her. Ultimately, the best thing that she could do would be to seek the life of privacy that she claims that she wants and stay away for a number of years, and she just might, and my expert emphasised might, be able to rehabilitate her image many years in the future, although I wouldn't bet on it. It would appear, therefore, that the attempt to be a success has now eluded this one's wife, my expert forming the view that even staying away for a number of years wouldn't allow rehabilitation. Queen Camilla, of course, was a much disliked figure as a consequence of her involvement in the marriage of Charles and Diana. But she kept her head down and has rehabilitated her image, whereby many people have put to bed what has gone on in the past and allowed her to get into a better position in terms of the way that she is perceived by many people. The difference is, however, was that she was never disloyal to the royal family, which is something that many people cannot allow this one's wife to get away with. Nor was she as overexposed or as self-serving as this one's wife was. Whilst there were many who really did not like her, ultimately her list of poor behaviours was nowhere near as long as that of this one's wife. And it would appear that ultimately the conclusion is that this one's wife, from a PR perspective, ought to vanish and not really return because her public image isn't capable of being salvaged. And you all know why that is. It's because of the way that her narcissism has caused her to behave. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.